Dead men tell no tales, David declared in a mock pirate voice. He grinned, rocking the kayak back and forth and eliciting a scream from his son and a fit of giggles from his daughter. This was Danny's first camping trip and Joanna's last before she went off to college. Joan loved the camping trips. Every year her father would take her off to an obscure campground not far from Folly Beach in Charleston, South Carolina. They'd take a kayak up to the marsh or out to the ocean, make maps, take pictures of wildlife, and be back in the obscure alcove before dusk to make a fire. Sometimes they'd boil clams, and other times they'd just gut and cook fish. They always had s'mores on the very last night. This year, David had promised to let her have a beer to celebrate graduating high school. Danny was only 6, and his mom, the protective and stubborn matriarch that she was, refused to let him go until this year, since it would be Joanna's last. His mommy was scared of the ocean. She didn't like how big things got down there or how deep it was. She hated the taste. The fact that poo and urine floated around aimlessly, she truly despised the ocean. All but the salt and sand. She said she didn't mind the salt, and that the sand wasn't too different from mud. Danny was something like his mommy. He was terrified of the ocean and had spent hours pleading to stay at the tent. Eventually, Joan had scared him by talking about alligators the size of a truck, and he climbed into the boat. The trio rowed out, and as soon as the sun climbed high in the sky, Danny relaxed. Daddy promised to take them through the marsh, so that if anything bad happened, he could find a safe place to land. That mixed with the grass and trees and put Danny at ease. It felt similar to sitting in the front yard, except the grass was taller. As the sun began its descent, David turned the kayak, beginning the journey back to the alcove. He cursed, realizing that the tide had fallen lower than he'd anticipated. The kayak was caught on something. Maybe sand, maybe a wooden post that sank some years back. No amount of prodding, shaking, or wiggling moved the kayak, and he was scared that he'd bust a hole in it if he kept up. "Okay, kids," he said with a deep breath. "Daddy's got to get in the water. Stay put. Don't move an inch." "Okay," Joan said with a sigh. She grabbed Danny's little hand before he could start sobbing and gave it a gentle squeeze. David stood, pulled off his shirt, handed off his cell phone to Joan, and then eased into the water. Plopped under. The boat shook, then moved. The boat shook more, lifted up. The boat dipped violently with a splash, started to move forward, and David's hand shot up, gripping its side. Then floated for a minute. Joan thought her dad was playing a prank, and that he was going to leap out of the water and scare them at any moment. And that's when she saw the blood pluming up through the water, and the rest of her dad's arm floating away.